Welcome to Doctors Unbound, your show devoted to doctors who are, well, unbound by physician stereotypes. Get a behind-the-scenes look at doctors that are breaking the mold and breaking into the worlds of technology, writing, investing, politics, just to name a few. This is Doctors Unbound, where you'll hear from experts with the insights to help you go to the next level. Let's get this show started. Here is your host, Dr. Dave Draginas.
Welcome to the next episode of the Doctors Unbound podcast. I want to start off today's episode with a big thank you. Thank you to everyone out there listening. We are on episode 5, and already I've just gotten so much support from you out there. A lot of people have given us ratings and reviews, so thank you so much for that. Thank you for those that have subscribed to the show or have just communicated with me through social media and encouraged me about this podcast. Thanks. I really do appreciate it. I'm just so excited about the trajectory that this show is on. Today, I've got another awesome episode for you. I've got Dr. Emma Nichols, who shares her story about how she got into medical writing, how she built a business around this area, and what it takes to succeed with writing online. She's got a ton of experience, has been doing this for many, many years, and so we go into a lot of depth about the resources that she's developed to help doctors to succeed in this space. If you've ever thought about doing any kind of medical writing online, you definitely do not want to miss this episode with Dr. Emma Nichols. All right, welcome to another edition of the Doctors Unbound podcast. We are just very excited today because we have Dr. Emma Nichols, who has a wealth of knowledge on freelance medical writing. And we're just excited to have her here today so that we can pick her brain and hear all about these opportunities for physicians. So Emma, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be on the show. Thank you.
Fantastic. So let's get a little bit into your professional background. Could you give our listeners a little background as to kind of your education and where you're coming from?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been a medical writer since about 2000. And that was right after getting my PhD in molecular biology from Emory University. And then later on, I got a master's in professional technical communication. So I've had my business, like I said, since 2000. Which makes me a little bit older, and but it's grown into a company now called Nascent Medical, and I reorganized that with a business partner in 2015, and so now we have about over 40 MD, PhD level medical writers who really can write about any specialty. So it's really great. I love it, and it was born out of not being entirely happy with wanting to go into, I didn't really want to go into academia after I got my PhD. So it was kind of a career change. It was considered an alternative career for me at the time.
Because that's what I was going to ask you about is you went from a PhD, molecular biology, all that kind of cool stuff, and then you kind of switched gears a little bit. What kind of made you want to switch into medical writing?
Exactly. So in graduate school, I had a stipend that I lived on, which wasn't very much. Right. So I was getting by on that, and but I had a kind of a point in graduate school about 3 years in. It was like a 6-year program for my PhD, and I just realized that I'd invested so much time that I didn't feel that I could quit, but I wasn't sure about the path forward either, and I wasn't particularly talented in doing lab experiments, but I did love science and medicine. So it turned out that, writing is kind of a skill of mine. And so at the time, I didn't really know what to do, but I looked into whether I could combine science and writing somehow. And it turns out there's an organization even back then that is called National Association of Science Writers. And so that's what started it. And so I started taking on freelance work and started making more money doing that immediately than I did as a graduate student, of course. And so I finished up my PhD, thank goodness, because that was really helpful to have that.
Right.
But yeah, and then I just went into full-time freelancing right away.
That's really It was really interesting. I was a biomedical engineer for undergrad, and I worked in a molecular biology lab, and so there were obviously a lot of PhDs and postdocs in the lab, and I saw what they were doing, and I was interested in research, but I couldn't see myself doing it as a career, and I knew that kind of the stuff that I'd want to do would probably have to be like PhD level, but I just saw the road, and I saw 6 to 8 years these PhD candidates were putting in, and then they're doing postdoc, and they weren't being paid very well. And luckily for me, there was a neurologist doing research in our lab, and he kind of took me under his wing, and that's kind of how I went the med school path. But thank you for sharing that. That's a pretty interesting story. Was it, when you first started off, was it, I'm sure there wasn't kind of like a set path, so was it difficult to break into medical writing?
Well, right around that time, it was like 97 to 99. It's just when the internet was kind of firing up, and so the person who started WebMD Medscape actually called me in my lab one day and wanted me to write. I mean, that was how, it was back then. There was actually work because the whole online thing was getting started. So that was worked in my favor. But I also took on anything I could in terms of editing dissertations and whatever I could get my hands on, I did. I've always been very, a part of it's mindset. So it didn't occur to me that I couldn't succeed at it, in that particular area. So I really went all out. And I would say that, I had this advisory committee for my PhD that thought I was just losing my mind in terms of, why am I throwing away a good career in science? And the doctors that I work with, that I help them get into medical writing, we'll talk about that later, but, they have to deal with that too, with their peers, MDs and PhDs. Why are you throwing away a good career? Well, I have absolutely no regrets, and it turned out to be the best thing that I did. I mean, I stayed at home with my daughter, who's now 13. I've never missed her bus. I can go to all of her things.
That's fantastic.
And yeah, it really is. And I work at home. So it's really a great career. So I hope that answered the question.
Sure, absolutely. So let's kind of think about our audience, which is probably mostly physicians, maybe some other advanced science degree type people. How can they today take advantage of, the medical writing opportunities that are out there?
Sure. So the first thing that is important, you have to determine whether you've got the right kind of background for it, because even though, your science background is obviously going to be really strong, you do have to be a good writer. And I get a lot of people that are non-native speakers of English wanting to get into medical writing. And I would even, PhDs and MDs, and I would say, first of all, you've got to have a writing that's kind of flawless. All right. So the first step would be to learn how to write. It's not something we necessarily know how to do, even if we're talented. Mm-hmm. And there are several books on that you can get. A couple that are really good are like The Elements of Style is good. And then On Writing Well is another good one, but there are many. So get that under your belt first if you want to get into medical writing, just because they're dealing with people all day long, then that might be something that you should think about. All right.
Okay, those are 3 very good points there. And now you have some resources available for physicians if they'd be interested in pursuing this career. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have available?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can tell you, in 2011, I read a book called E-Myth Revisited, it's a very famous classic business book, but it teaches you how to work on your business rather than in your business. Sure. So I got it in my head that I wanted to expand my business outside myself. I brought on a couple of subcontractors and it failed miserably.
Oh boy.
Because I was like, people would do it. It wouldn't be up to standard and I'd have to redo it overnight and get no sleep, that kind of thing. So right around that time, I started thinking about, a course to help people transition people into medical writing, because I've always gotten those emails that, oh, well, how do I do what you do? And so I put together a course starting in 2011, and it turned out that was a great course from where I could pick the best people from the course, and they could be subcontractors for my company. So that is really, it helped them get into freelance medical writing, and it also helped me, expand beyond myself.
Seems like a win-win that you set up there.
Exactly. It was a win-win. And so that was 2011. And then just last year in 2016, I actually made the course online, doing all the principles of online course building and that kind of thing. And I actually wrote a book in 2014, which is basically, the basis for the course, which you can buy the book for on Amazon for $30. It's called, if you type in freelance medical writing, that will pull it right up. So if you don't want to do the course or whatever, then that's a good place to start if you're really interested in getting into medical writing.
And that is your book? You're listed as the author for that?
Yeah, Emma Hitt is my former name, Nichols, Emma Hitt Nichols.
Okay.
And just type in freelance medical writing into Amazon, that'll pull it up. But that would be a place to start. I would also recommend joining, if you're really interested, AMWA, which is American Medical Writers Association. That is a really good organization. That's our main one, professional organization that you can join. And they have active chapters all over the nation. Let's see. And then what else did you want to know?
So just thinking about it from my standpoint and, kind of venturing into this podcasting thing, I think as physicians, we've put in a lot of time to get training, and if we're practicing, we make a decent income. So we don't have a lot of time, but we do have some money. So I've taken a few courses this year to kind of help with this online stuff, and I would say that they've been very helpful to me. So maybe give us a little bit more details about this course that you have, maybe kind of how it's set up. And is that something that you think, does that basically kind of shortcut the process for anybody who's interested in this?
Yeah, so the 6-week course is what it's called. It's everything you need to know to start your freelance medical writing business. And the website is 6weekcourse.com. So you can check that out. But it's basically 6 modules, and it'll tell you, it won't teach you how to write. You have to actually be able to write. You have to pass the test. I only take about half the people that apply to get into the course. And once the writing is good, then within the course itself, you actually learn about how to set up your own business for medical writing, how to get clients, and then the different types of medical writing, such as continuing medical education, regulatory writing. We touch on that. We don't do a lot of that because that's actually not something that I do as a genre, but also feature articles, news writing. And so the different genres of medical writing, and it just gives a complete overview. And it takes about 6 weeks. And there's a very real opportunity that you will get your first paying work from my company, Nascent Medical.
What kind of time commitment would be necessary if somebody's going to do this course?
Yeah, so it's really great if you have about at least 10 hours a week that you can devote to it. Then the more you do, the better. It's like anything, right? So the more you commit to it, the better it'll be in terms of the outcome. I know people that there's all different ways to do it. It's a real transition into freelance medical writing if you're really dedicated to it. But I also know clinicians that have participated and they want to do part-time patient care and part-time starting up their business. And in that case, it's going to take you a little longer to get your business set up. And the only thing I would say about that is, you have to make sure that's not going to be a problem with whatever job you have, that you're going to be doing medical writing on the side. Sometimes there is. And
problems in the sense of non-competes within physician agreements, or just...
exactly. Yeah. Sometimes, they don't a lot of times they'll have something in the contract where you're not supposed to do any other kind of moonlighting or anything like that. But if that's sorted out, then the other thing is that you can absolutely combine it with medicine as a career, so long as you can access your email during the day and respond to the occasional client email. Because the projects that you do, they'll often be they'll be what you choose to take on, and you can work within the deadline and everything, and you can do it when you're not working in practice. But if a client has a query and you're spending 8 hours in an operation or whatever without being able to respond to the client, that's going to get to be challenging.
Right.
So that's the only thing.
Are you finding that most physicians are using this to transition into a completely different career? Are you finding that some of them are doing it to kind of supplement and maybe go part-time? Are you getting a sense of what most physicians are doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say I've had, I think a lot of clinicians, let's see, I would say about, of all the MDs that have been through my course, I would say about half continue on in clinical practice, and then half do it completely full time. And the ones that do it completely full time, they're really gung ho because because they probably have student loans and all these obligations.
They need to replace that income.
Yeah, exactly. And that gets to the good question about income. And I will tell you, since graduate school, I've never made less than 6 figures. Right. Okay. But I'm driven. And I'm good. I like to think that I'm really good at what I do. I mean, clients always come back to me and they like what I do. And it's been a priority in my life. So it is a 6-figure profession.
So I believe you when you say you're good at what you do. What does it take to be that person? What makes you good at that? Like, is it the, the soft touch with the client? Is it the writing? Is it all of the above, something else?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think part of it is being easy to work with, because clients, like patients, they're going to be, some of them are really great to work with and some of them are like a little disorganized or, needy or whatever it is. And then I think you also have to be very detail oriented and clinicians, I mean, I would hope they're going to be detail oriented kind of people, but if you're the kind of person that doesn't always type in numbers correctly, then medical writing is not going to be the right career. And you also have to be willing to look things up. You have to be accurate. You have to have a kind of an attention to detail. And this is kind of nebulous, but if you're the kind of person that can see the big picture, so is this piece of writing going to serve my reader? But also detail oriented enough to get down to the, the proofreading level. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you have to sort of have that range of personality.
Gotcha. That is very interesting. And to be able to, earn a 6-figure living on this is what kind of, I know this is kind of difficult to put a finger on, but is what kind of hours are we talking about? Is that, 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week?
Yeah, I would say 40 intensive hours a week, so of writing. Mm-hmm. And when you break it down, all right, if you look at, let's say you get 2 weeks off a year, that's 50 weeks. And then you think how much you need to make a week. You need to make $2,000 a week. So that's 400. Is that right? 400 a day. So it's not very hard to bill out at $400 a day in medical writing. How
does the billing typically work? Is it per project? Is it?
Yeah, we do it per project. I do it per project. I like to, and then oftentimes, they'll say, okay, well, we've got this 3,000 word manuscript. How much will you do? Will you charge for that? And I start with $1 per word. So that will be about $3,000.
Gotcha.
And I can knock that out. You get quicker as you get more experience. So honestly, that's going to take me about 15 hours from start to finish, probably.
And that includes any research that you'd have to do on that subject?
Yeah, exactly. I also say it probably takes you about an hour to write 200 words from start to finish. So if you have, let's say you're doing a 2,000 word piece, that's going to take you about 10 hours.
Okay.
So and then you can figure out your hourly rate. And the hourly rate for medical writers is, first starting out, at least 100, and then it can go up to, up above that. But I don't like quoting an hourly rate because, I do things quicker. So why should I get penalized? That kind of thing. So I like to give a project.
Well, I can imagine that as you gain experience in this field and your writing gets better and all that kind of stuff, that, you become more efficient and,
Yeah, exactly.
Then your hourly rate probably goes up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, that is all fascinating. There's so much that I didn't know, and I've been curious about this field. Any mistakes to avoid for somebody who's kind of starting out on this? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I would say, let me just take a sip of water, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
So I would say the biggest mistake that I get people emailing me all the time, as do most, experienced medical writers. And I get a lot of emails from MDs. And the mistake I see is to think that you're in, and this is going to sound, I don't want to sound negative, but you mustn't think you're unique just because you have an MD, because there's a lot of people that want to get into medical writing and do what what we do. And so that number is very high.
Sure.
But I would also say that, a good medical writer is still hard to find, in terms of, if you're really good, then yes, you can do it. It's kind of similar to like screenwriting or the acting industry. It's hard to get in. Everyone wants to be an actor, but very few are movie stars, right?
Sure.
So it's that kind of thing. So don't think that you're unique. And then also, you get people doing these big asks. Like, I got an email this morning wanting me to call him back,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm kind of busy, so I'm not going to be calling you back, helping you get into the field of medical writing. So it's like anything you listen to online or is going to tell you have to give a little before you ask.
Absolutely.
And I also forgot to mention, there's something I have called the hit list, which has been going out since 2003. And what it is a weekly jobs email. And it goes out to like thousands of people, but it's medical writing jobs. And so if you subscribe to that, you'll get a good overview of medical writing jobs that you can look at.
And how can people subscribe to that?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, which is Nascent, NASCENTMC.com, there'll be a pop-up, and it's free. Everything's free. And just put in your email, and you should get that email. It goes out on Friday.
Okay.
But the reason I brought that up is that I think people miss opportunities. So I have a portion of that hit list. There's a link, an offer to include a link to a blog post that will link to your website, right? So like, if I'm a new medical writer, I have a website, and I've written a blog post, you can send us that link, and we'll put it on the hit list, and it'll go to thousands of people.
Okay.
But how many people, and it says that on there, but like only like 2 or 3 people have done that, which I think that's incredible, because it's a big opportunity. People click on those links, and it can result in work. So
people just don't take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of them sometimes. Exactly.
And I know we're both in the same, podcasting group. And, take the opportunity to help people out. People are always putting their designs and asking for advice. So, be a helper before you ask.
Absolutely.
And that's always a good thing to do.
I think that will always get you very far.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So
I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
That is all fantastic. If somebody is interested in pursuing this or finding out more about it, what would be like the top couple of things, the actionable things that they could do to kind of get into this?
Sure. So definitely look at the AMWA website and go to the chapter meeting near you if there is one. And you can definitely check out, of course, the 6weekcourse.com, which is my course website. And that has a lot of information too. It's not just my course. And then that would be a good start.
Okay. Well, I can't think of anything else to add unless something else pops into your mind about the topic.
No, I just would say, life is too short to be unhappy in your chosen field. And there's no shame in wanting to do something different especially because I know with MDs and scientists too, they put so much into their career, and, just a lot of people might be disappointed if you leave that career. But there's numerous examples that I've worked with that combine a career as a clinician and writing, and then also completely transition over. So it is possible. Just know that.
Well, thank you. I think that is a wonderful quote. Life is too short to be unhappy, and I think physicians do feel a lot of pressure, whether it's pressure whether perceived or real from colleagues. If they try and transition to something else. Or sometimes it might even be just the fear of the unknown, because you're used to kind of doing your thing, and it's very stressful to transition into something else where you don't know how exactly it's going to work out. But I think you're right. Life is too short to be unhappy, and if there's people out there who want to give this a shot or think that medical writing might be for them, I think thank you. This has been a very informative podcast.
You're welcome. And if anybody listens to this and wants to reach out to me, just tell me that you heard me on this podcast, and we'll make some good things happen.
Well,
right.
Awesome. Thank you. So we'll end with this, just a final question. Where is the best place for people to reach you?
Well, a lot of people have some questions. So the first thing, get those questions answered. You can look at my book, and you can look at the 6-week course. And then if all your questions are not answered, then do reach out to me. My email is emma@nascentmc.com. All right.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Dr. Emma Nichols, for that wonderful breakdown of medical writing.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Doctors Unbound podcast. Remember to head over to doctorsunbound.com to access all the show notes and resources discussed in this episode. Now, it's your turn to be unbound.